There is a particular kind of regret that only arrives after the door has already closed. It doesn't scream, it doesn't break anything. It simply sits beside you at 2 in the morning and asks one question you cannot escape. Why didn't you stop her? Because she gave you a chance. She didn't leave without warning. She didn't disappear overnight. She didn't stop loving you in a single afternoon. She told you, more than once, she told you she was tired. She told you she felt alone. She told you she didn't know how much longer she could keep trying. And every time you thought there would be another day, another conversation, another opportunity, you thought she would stay. Until one night, she didn't. And what hurts now isn't only that she left, it's remembering that she was standing right in front of you, waiting for you to fight for her, and you let her walk away. An Henri. Her name was Claire, and for 3 years she had been the person who knew you better than anyone. She knew when you were stressed before you admitted it. She knew when something was wrong by the way you answered the phone. She knew which foods you hated, which songs you secretly loved, which childhood story you never told anyone. She knew how to sit beside you in silence without making the silence uncomfortable. And you loved her. That was never the problem. The problem was, you didn't know how to show someone you were afraid of losing them. You had always believed love was supposed to be steady, quiet, uncomplicated. If you loved someone, you stayed, you paid the bills, you showed up, you fixed things, you did what needed to be done. You weren't the kind of man who wrote long messages about feelings. You didn't make dramatic promises. You thought your presence was the proof. You thought she knew. She did, but she needed something else. She needed you to fight for the relationship when it became difficult, and you didn't understand that until it was too late. The first time she told you she was unhappy, you were sitting in your car. Rain was tapping against the windshield. She looked at you and said, "I don't feel like you need me anymore." You frowned. "Of course I need you. Then why don't I feel it?" You didn't have an answer. So you gave the answer you always gave when something became emotionally uncomfortable. "I don't know." She looked out the window, then whispered, "That's what scares me." You thought the conversation was over. You drove home, made dinner, went to sleep. The next morning, everything felt normal again, and because everything felt normal, you assumed the problem had passed. It hadn't. That was the first thing you misunderstood. A few weeks later, she stopped asking you to talk. That should have frightened you. Instead, you felt relieved. No more difficult conversations, no more questions, no more tension. She became quieter. You became quieter too. You thought the relationship was finally peaceful. But there is a difference between peace and someone slowly giving up, and you didn't recognize the difference, not yet. One Friday evening, she asked, "Do you still want this?" You were tired, work had been difficult, you had a headache, you were thinking about Yakmana, so you answered honestly, "Of course I do." She waited, then asked, "Then why aren't you doing anything to keep it?" You looked at her. "What do you want me to do?" She shook her head. "That's exactly what I mean. You didn't understand. You thought she was asking you to become someone you weren't. She wasn't. She was asking you to show her that losing her would hurt. She wanted you to say, "No, we're not giving up yet." She wanted you to sit beside her and ask, "What do we need to fix?" She wanted you to stop treating every emotional conversation like a problem that would eventually disappear. But you were uncomfortable, so you became practical. "We'll figure it out." She nodded, but there was something different in her face. Something almost final. That night, she left something on your desk, a small silver keychain. It was nothing expensive. You had bought it together during a weekend trip, a tiny compass. She had once joked that you were terrible at directions. You kept the keychain. She kept hers. It became your little thing. That night, she placed yours on the desk. You noticed it. The next morning, you picked it up, put it in your pocket, and didn't ask why she had left it there. That was the second thing you misunderstood. She wasn't returning a keychain. She was leaving you a warning. 3 weeks later, she said, "I think I need to go." You were standing in the kitchen. You remember everything about that moment. The refrigerator humming, a glass of water beside the sink, the light above the stove, the rain outside, even the exact because you were shocked. You did what you had always done. You went quiet. She waited. You said, "If that's what you want." Her face changed, just slightly, almost like something inside her had broken. She asked, "That's it?" You didn't understand the question. "What do you want me to say?" She stared at you. "I wanted you to say you don't want me to go." Silence, then she whispered, "I wanted you to fight for me." You remember those words now, because you understand them differently. Back then, you thought fighting meant begging. You thought it meant losing your dignity. You thought if someone wanted to leave, you should let them. You were trying to respect her decision. But she wasn't asking you to control her. She was asking whether the relationship was worth fighting for, and you never answered. She packed that night, not dramatically, no screaming, no slammed doors. Just drawers opening, clothes folding, a suitcase rolling across the floor. You watched. You wanted to say something. You almost did several times, but pride kept your mouth closed. Then she reached the door. She looked back. And for one final moment, she gave you an opening. She said, "If you want me to stay, say it." You remember standing there. Your heart was pounding. Your throat felt tight. You could have said 4 words, "Please don't leave me." Instead, you said nothing. She nodded, not angrily, not dramatically, just sadly. Then she walked out. The door closed, and the apartment became unbearably quiet. You waited 10 minutes, then 20. Then an hour. You told yourself she would call. She didn't. You checked your phone. Nothing. You opened your messages. Typed, "Are you okay?" Derated it. "Come back." Derated it. Typed, "We need to talk." Derated it. Then you put the phone down and told yourself, "If she really wants to leave, I can't stop her." Maybe that sounded mature, but deep down, you knew there was something else. You were afraid. Afraid that if you admitted how much you needed her, you would become vulnerable. Afraid that if you fought and still lost, you would have no excuse left. So you chose silence, and that's protected your pride, but it cost you the relationship. And Aurora. Months passed. You heard almost nothing about Claire. At first, you assumed she would eventually reach out. Then you started noticing the absence. Her name disappeared from your phone's recent calls. Her photographs stopped appearing. Her birthday arrived. You didn't message her. She didn't message you. Another month passed, then another. Eventually, you heard through a mutual friend that Claire had moved. Different apartment, different neighborhood, different job, new routines, a different life. You nodded when your friend told you. You said, "Good for her." Then you went home and sat in your car for 20 minutes without starting the engine. Because suddenly you understood she hadn't been waiting for you. She had been waiting for you to become certain, and when you remained silent, she became certain for you. One night, almost a year later, you found the little compass keychain again. It had been sitting in the drawer beside your bed. You held it in your palm. The metal was scratched. The little compass still moved. You remembered the trip where you bought it. Claire had laughed because you had taken the wrong road twice. She had said, "You never know where you're going." You smiled. She replied, "Maybe that's why you need me." You hadn't understood then, but now you did. She wasn't saying she wanted to control your direction. She was saying she wanted to walk beside you, and you had mistaken needing someone for weakness. That night, you finally admitted something you hadn't been willing to say. You missed her, not the convenience, not the routine. Her, the way she looked at you when she knew you were lying about being okay, the way she said your name, the way she remembered tiny things, the way she made ordinary evenings feel like they mattered. You missed being known, and perhaps that was the real thing you lost, not a girlfriend, not a relationship. You lost the person who had seen behind your defenses and loved you there. Dolled. If you're a man listening to this right now and you've been thinking about someone you let walk away, maybe you know this feeling. You may have told yourself, "I gave her space. I respected her decision. I didn't want to beg. If she wanted to stay, she would have stayed." But sometimes that's not the whole truth. Sometimes someone doesn't want you to beg. They want you to show up. They want you to say, "I'm not willing to lose this without trying." There is a difference between desperation and and vulnerability, between controlling someone and fighting for something you value, between begging someone to love you and being brave enough to tell them you still love them. And maybe you're realizing that now. Maybe she didn't leave because she stopped caring. Maybe she left because she had been caring alone for too long. Maybe every time she asked you to talk, she was giving you another chance. Maybe every time she said, "I'm tired," she wasn't threatening to leave. Maybe she was hoping you would finally hear her. Maybe the last conversation wasn't the beginning of the breakup. Maybe it was the final test of whether you were willing to fight for what you had, and you failed it. That truth hurts. But don't run from it, because if you understand it, you can change. If you're listening late at night, holding on to someone you let go, don't immediately text her. Don't send a desperate message because loneliness is loud tonight. Instead, ask yourself one honest question: do I miss her, or do I miss who I was when she loved me? Sit with that, because sometimes we don't want the person back. We want another chance to undo our mistake, and those are different things. And Rauber, but if you genuinely know you loved her, if you know you were emotionally unavailable, if you know fear made your decisions, then let that truth change you. Don't just regret. Learn how to communicate. Learn how to say "I'm scared." Learn how to say "I need you." Learn how to stay in difficult conversations. Learn how to stop assuming that silence is strength. Because the next woman who loves you shouldn't have to leave before you realize how much she matters. And if this story feels uncomfortably familiar, subscribe to this channel. Not just for another heartbreak story. Score, because sometimes men don't get a place to talk about the things they regret, the things they never said, the women they lost, the emotions they buried, the nights when they stare at the ceiling and wonder, what if I had just fought a little harder? If you've ever carried that question silently, subscribe. Come back here when the night gets heavy. There will be more stories about love, regret, loneliness, letting go, and the things we only understand after we've lost them. Skuster now. You don't have to pretend you're unaffected here. A few months after finding the compass, you finally wrote Claire a letter. You didn't ask her to come back. You didn't tell her you couldn't live without her. You didn't make excuses. You simply told her the truth. You said you were sorry. You admitted that she had asked you to fight for the relationship, and you hadn't. You told her you had confused silence with strength. You told her you had been afraid. You told her she deserved someone who could communicate what he felt before it was too late. Then you ended the letter with something you never would have been brave enough to say before. I hope you find the kind of love that doesn't make you question whether you're wanted. You read it twice, then sent it and waited. She didn't respond that night or the next or the next. Eventually, she did. Her message was short. She said, "Thank you for finally saying what I needed to hear back then." You stared at the screen, then another message appeared. "I loved you very much." Your chest tightened, then came the sentence you knew you had to accept. "But I don't think I can go back." You closed your eyes. It hurt. But this time you didn't fight the truth. You didn't try to convince her. You didn't ask for another chance. You simply replied, "I understand." And for the first time, you let her go without trying to make her stay. That was not the ending you wanted, but it was the ending you needed. Sometimes love doesn't end with two people getting back together. Sometimes it ends with one person finally understanding what they should have understood sooner. You had wanted Claire to stay, but now you understood something deeper. She shouldn't have had to beg you to want her. She shouldn't have had to threaten to leave before you noticed. She shouldn't have had to stand at the door and ask you to prove that she mattered. You should have known. And maybe that's the lesson you carry forward. If you're lying awake tonight, thinking about the woman who left, remember this. You cannot go back to that doorway. You cannot change what you said. You cannot unsend your silence. You cannot become the man you are now and walk into yesterday, but you can become him tomorrow. You can learn to speak. You can learn to stay. You can learn to fight for love without losing yourself. You can learn that vulnerability isn't weakness, and you can learn that sometimes the strongest thing a man man can say is, I don't want to lose you. Maybe she wanted you to fight for her. Maybe you didn't. Maybe she has moved on. Maybe she hasn't. You may never know. And tonight, you don't need to know. What matters is what you do with the truth now. Don't spend another year punishing yourself. Don't turn one mistake into your identity. Don't become the man who says, I always ruin everything. Become the man who says, I understand what I did, I understand why I did it, and I refuse to repeat it. Handperubs, Planskriverbs, the little compass is still in your drawer. You could throw it away. Maybe one day you will. But for now, you keep it, not because you're waiting for Claire, not because you expect her to return. Because it reminds you of something. You spent years believing you needed to know exactly where you were going. But maybe love was never about having the perfect direction. Maybe it was about having the courage to say, stay. Let's figure it out together. You didn't say it then, you can't say it now. But someday, someone else may stand in front of you with tears in her eyes and ask whether you still want the relationship. And this time, you won't hide behind silence. You'll look at her, you'll take her hand, and you'll tell her the truth before the door closes. So tonight, if you're thinking about her, let yourself feel it. Don't be ashamed of the regret. Don't pretend you don't care, but don't live inside the regret either. She walked away, you let her, and perhaps that is the hardest sentence you've ever had to accept, but it doesn't have to be the sentence that defines the rest of your life. Let it teach you, let it soften you, let it make you braver, let it teach you how to say the words you once swallowed. I love you, I'm scared, I need you. Let's fix this, please don't leave. Not because you should chase everyone who walks away, but because the people who matter deserve to know when they matter. And sometimes, person you're afraid to fight for is the person you will spend years wishing you had. So take a breath. Put the phone down, let the room become quiet, and if her memory comes tonight, don't hate yourself for still loving her. Just promise yourself one thing, never again let pride speak louder than love. Because there are some doors you can close, and some doors you can reopen, but there are others that close quietly and never open again. Good night.